Sophia Small Storm. We're in the dead middle of January now, and we're going to face, I think, 5 straight days of pouring rain in California this week, and that means basically the drought is done with. They geoengineered the drought, and now they're finished with that, and they're going to figure out some other little trick to land on our heads. But I have with me today Sonia Barrett, whom I learned of through the ConspiracyCon conference when she was a speaker there one year, and I was as well. And Sonia she really impressed me in many ways, but one was quite striking. Sonia Barrett volunteered for the 9 a.m. spot on, I believe it was Saturday morning, and had no qualms or fears about it. And this really struck me. It was a measure of her personality, her abilities, and you'll learn why as we progress into this interview. So, Sonia, how are you?
I am great. I just thought about what you said about the 9 o'clock spot. I didn't even think about it, but yeah, okay, that is interesting because nobody wants to do that, I guess, at 9. They don't want to be the first person or something like that.
And they don't want to be the early person that, if people sleep late or they're finishing breakfast, their talk won't be seen by as many. But you were that. I just went, wow.
Yeah.
And you even explained that to the audience. I think we were in the Q&A. You said, I just took the 9 a.m. spot. Or Brian introduced you saying she was the one who took it. And I said, this is someone to remember.
Yeah, either that or I'm crazy, but it turned out fine. There was, still quite a few people there, and it was quite a few people, so it was good. I think we just get hung up on a whole bunch of stuff, and I think people are going to be where they need to be when they want to be there. So,
right. And would you like to give the audience a little bit of background? You're an author. You are recently now a filmmaker. You've just produced a documentary, and you can tell us a little bit about what you're doing with that. But you really have kicked off quite a lot of interest. I saw on the internet that you had written an article in 2010 about breast cancer. And is that what put you on the map? How did you get the visibility that you have today, can I ask?
The visibility that I have it was before that. I came out with my first book in 2007. Actually, this is my 10-year anniversary of coming out the closet with saying all the stuff that I say. I wrote a book called The Holographic Canvas, The Fusing of Mind and Matter. And that's really basically where it started in terms of all the lectures and workshops that I've done, and people, I guess, gravitating to what I'm talking about because I tend to go left if everybody else goes right, and just raise questions about the nature of reality and us and all of that. So that's where it started. And then in 2010, I wrote this article called The Marketing of Breast Cancer, the Pink Ribbon Agenda. And that was based on my frustration or annoyance, I should say, with every time I went to the store, I would get asked if I wanted to donate. And I just was like, okay, well, this is just much. And then there are pink ribbons everywhere. And that's kind of what got me started thinking about it as in terms of what it was doing to our minds and the symbols, the fact that we identified things more with symbols than even with language than we think. So I just wondered what that was doing to our minds, not just, the minds of women, but everybody in general. You see pink, and automatically now you're sort of programmed to think that. So that's kind of where that started, and that's how the film came about.
Well, that's very interesting because the film is the business of disease, and you're actually doing this as a proper documentary with distribution, theatrical release, right?
Yeah. I now have, I do have distribution now. I did run for a week in Los Angeles and in New York, but we may do more, more theater. But there's been a lot of screenings, and I've done a few film festivals. But yes, I was able to get picked up by a fairly large distribution company. So the film will be distributed. In It's supposed to be February on all major on-demand platforms. Amazon, well, that's digital for Amazon and Hulu and all of those, but on demand in terms of getting on your TV and seeing. And a list of those will be made available on the website. So yes, I did take it that route.
And this film, you traveled around, you interviewed a lot of people. The trailer is available on the internet, The Business of Disease. And so really it sprang out of that article about breast cancer, right?
Yeah, the article was so much more than I think about breast cancer. Originally, I thought I was going to do maybe interview like a few people. I didn't set out to do a documentary per se. I just thought, you know what, I want to interview a few people, make a YouTube video in reference to all of this, experts I wanted to speak to. And it just sort of evolved into something that was much bigger. Just really looking at the overall picture of us as human beings, and not just marketing, but how we are designed, and aspects that Western medicine don't explore, the emotional parts of it, and what we define as alternative medicine, when it's the traditional Western medicine that should be the alternative, not the other way around, not a natural way of operating. So yes, so the article made its way around the internet, and even people who have had breast cancer responded to the article. And some of those responses can be seen actually on the website, thebusinessofdisease.com. People loved the article. They were excited about it and wished that they had some of this knowledge or examined that before they even had their breasts removed. Yeah, so I looked at that, all women having healthy breasts removed just in case, and the idea of Hollywood Angelina Jolie at the time becoming the symbol, making it okay for us to remove our breasts as if they really don't serve any real purpose. Like it's okay just to get rid of them, sort of starting to trivialize losing our eliminating body parts.
Which I think is part of the road to the integration of man with artificial
transhumanism,
right? Intelligence and synthetic biology. And yes, they are encouraging women to remove their breasts in advance of any problems, which is absolutely shocking. And they use this excuse of epigenetics to say that, in your lineage, in your DNA, there's a possibility that you will develop such and such disease based on your antecedent history. But the fact is that, honestly, if you're going to develop cancer, you're going to develop it somewhere else if you don't have breasts to develop it in. I mean, it's ridiculous and scary that people fall for this. But now your article, I was trying to Google it before we started the show so I could read it. Is that online? Would you have a link to that on your site?
Yeah, it's actually, if you went to thebusinessofdisease.com, I'm just going to copy the link and send it to you. Oops, the Business of Disease. Yeah, you will find it, and I'll tell you in a second where it is. If you go to the Business of Disease and you look under highlights, whoops, it's under highlights, and you go down highlights as I'm talking to you here, and you'll see the marketing of breast cancer. You click on it, and it takes you to the article. And there it is.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I'm going to be putting some links in the show description. Whoops, I think something's coming up there.
Yeah, I'm sorry. The trailer just for some reason it automatically starts playing.
Right.
So that's what you heard
Okay. All
playing.
right. So I'll be including links. Now, Sonia, I've watched talks of yours and listened to shows that you've done with various people, and you are somebody that seems to have a handle on a certain kind of deeper uh, set of conditions that defines who we are and what life is. Now, do you think that you are relatively easily understood by others in this regard, or do you feel that you are speaking to them in terms that they are grasping at themselves? And are you grasping at this point, or do you feel a little more anchored in the philosophies that you've been exploring and talking about?
That's a good question in terms of people, for one. I think it takes certain people gravitate to what I'm talking about simply because, yeah, no, there aren't any of the usual frills around it. There's not a whole lot of, I'd say, new age, fluffy kind of thing around it. It's a lot more direct. And I've heard this from other people who have explored my work. Some people, if you read some of the comments, they don't quite completely understand some of what is being said. But then I have some of these same people that come back years later and go, now I get it. Now I understand it. Now I understand what you were saying, or even in reading my book. So it is definitely very interesting. Yeah, I do open up some areas for some people that they're not um, exposed to or have not really thought about. For me, in the sense of, do I feel more anchored? Yeah, I think so. This is how I feel, Sophia. I feel okay. I feel fine with what I'm saying in the moment that I'm saying it. Um, my whole thing is that I don't see a conclusive, um, you know, outcome to defining what we think reality is. I think that people like to have comfortable conclusions and nail down reality and say this is specifically what it is, and then we fight about it. I don't see it that way. I don't think that something so infinite can be narrowed down to our narrow views, and because we are assessing, we're filtering what we think based on, I like to say, the latitude of our perception. So if our perception is very small, which means our ability to think way outside the box is very limited, it's very narrow, then that's as much as we're going to be able to grasp, to understand, and to even perceive or even consider. So, the more we open up is the more we allow ourselves to see more of what reality already is. And then that's what we call discovery. We're discovering, we just discovered this. And yet everything always was. Whatever it is, it always was that. So it's just a matter of where we are in our understanding and openness, and we get to encounter new concepts, new ideas, I think, in the moment, and then that becomes our launching pad to continue to discover even deeper, I think, perspectives and understanding about what's possible, what reality is, which to me it's any and everything.
Yeah, well, that's pretty flexible to say it's any and everything. I'm going to make a distinction here between the term reality and the term the truth, because I say as well that we can never really know the truth, because the truth is an ever expanding picture. And when people run up to you and they say, no, 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 I have the truth about such and such, and it's right here, look, it's in the palm of my hand. I've winnowed it down to this, and you must understand this. Suppose that the next day that person discovers or learns something that changes what he was showing you from the palm of his hand yesterday, then is that the truth now? Because it could be the diametric opposite of what he was saying yesterday. So we just are able to define, let's just say, a situation based on what we know about it. And there's always this endless plane of discovery that continues and continues beyond what we have learned about that very thing. And so I try to tell people, let's not say such and such is the truth. Let's just say this is what we're aware of at this point.
Well, you're saying exactly the same thing. That's exactly what I'm saying, because my term is, truth is forever expanding. It's always evolving. You're the one evolving into greater knowledge or deeper knowledge about something. So yeah, it becomes relative, in all honesty. So it's like, why battle over it? A person's truth or understanding of what they believe to be true in the moment is going to be based on the kind of knowledge that they have about that particular thing, which is what you're saying, in that moment. And 5 minutes from that moment, there could be something new that they have come to understand, and that's going to change what their understanding of truth was about that situation a few minutes prior to that. So we just have to be open to that and realize that it's okay, and that's what it is, as opposed to getting locked in and creating these finalities, and then we get into battles and wars with each other about who's right.
That's
So
right.
yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I stumbled into newfound knowledge for me this past weekend about an Amazonian tribe called the Pirahãs. And that's the Brazilian word for them. They don't have a name for themselves. They live in the depths of the Amazon jungle, and they are extremely simple. They have overturned concepts of language that have been proffered for decades by people like Noam Chomsky, professors in academic ivory towers. They were discovered by missionaries, and they absolutely refused to convert to Christianity. They were extremely resistant. No one has converted them to date. And one such missionary by the name of Dan Everett, who is now a professor of sociology and also very highly regarded in the world of linguistics, he, as a missionary, attempted to convert this tribe, and they were not interested. They have no future or past tense. They do not discuss the distant past or the distant future. They don't want to know about anything that doesn't have relevance to somebody that's standing right in front of them. So when this missionary, Dan Everett, tried to tell them about Jesus, they listened politely for a while, and then they said, do you know this Jesus? And he said, no. They said, how tall is he? He said, I don't know. They said, does he have dark skin like us or white skin like you? What color is his skin? And Dan Everett said, I don't know, because I've never seen Jesus. Well, did your father ever see Jesus? Did he know Jesus? No, he didn't know. So then they just told him with great finality, look, Dan, please stop telling us about this Jesus character. If you didn't know him, and your father didn't know him, and you haven't seen him, we don't want to hear anything more about him.
Oh my gosh, that is so funny. But it's so true. It's so on point, though, because people die for these beliefs that they really have no, no real, I don't even know, justification for. So that's very, very interesting. That's funny. Well, awesome. That is so awesome for them.
Well, it is. It has daunted lots of missionaries, but Everett, who went there as a Christian missionary, had spent some now 30 years studying the Piraha, and he lost his allegiance to Christianity as a result of being around them. Now,
awesome.
They laugh all the time. They do not count, and they refuse to learn math or any counting methodology whatsoever. They don't have any way to number anything except to say a lot or very little. That's it. Right. That's all they're interested in. And they have a very, you could say, a very kind of stable community life. They have a group sense along with an individuality sense. And so he had to study them anthropologically as well as linguistically in order to understand um, what he eventually turned into a book called Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes, because the Piraha do not say goodnight. They just advise each other not to sleep because there are snakes. And they live in a region where there are 500-pound anacondas and all kinds of other deadly creatures that, I mean, poison dart frogs, lethal spiders, and yet they're not at all stressed about any of this. And if a misfortune happens to them, for instance, they don't build huts, they just bend some palm leaves down and hunker under them if there's a driving rain. But if that falls apart, they just laugh and make another one. They do put simple baskets together to carry things, but as soon as they've carried whatever it is, they destroy the basket.
Right.
And so they have a completely different philosophy than we do. We hoard in comparison. They don't have a word for worry. It doesn't exist in their language. And so this has completely fascinated me, and I have put some videos about them up on my blog page, sophiasmallstorm.com. But what I wanted to bring to your attention, Sonia, and I want to probe your mind for this. I had always wondered about English because we don't really have any conjugation of verbs for the future. We just say, I will. I will go there tomorrow. Or I'm going to go there tomorrow. But there's no conjugation of go like there is in French, j'irai, I will go. We have this word will. There's no future tense in English either, except your intention as such. Think about that.
Right. Because everything is, well, basically just what you said. I mean, it is our intention. What I share a lot of times is that in workshops is to remind people that all that we have are scenarios and speculations about the future. The only thing that we really know of is right now. So that is something that I'm always saying. That's why I was fascinated with this tribe. But all that we have, that's the only thing we know is this moment. And everything that we consider to be the future, whether it be tomorrow, it's all speculative until we are there. So every tomorrow, we're always there. We are always there. You can't really get to tomorrow because you're always there. Does that make sense?
Well, right. There always is a tomorrow, and yeah.
But it's not like you're going to journey, take a bus and, I'm going to go to tomorrow. It's always in the next moment. So you just wander into what would have been defined as tomorrow, but it's still always going to be today.
Right.
Yeah, it's always going to be today.
Your intentions, like I will make a cake tomorrow.
You intend to, right?
But see, you're talking about a future event based on your intention. And so what struck me about this was that intention is what creates the future. So if you have a certain intention, then that's what you go forward with into that thing tomorrow. And that's how powerful intention is.
Right. It is definitely powerful. I mean, no doubt, because it's why everything is. I mean, everything exists obviously based on somebody's intention, all of our intention, or that which goes beyond this life, this reality. But yes, and again, scenarios, speculations, people worrying about tomorrow, even though we're talking about intention. It all still falls under that same, guideline. So your will is your intention. And you do everything, you make choices around making that intention happen to bake the cake. You maybe today you buy all the ingredients for the cake, and that steps up the possibility of that intention taking place, in the moment that you've created for yourself for it to happen, which would be tomorrow. So yeah, so everything else in our lives are going on that same pattern. I say, well, if you really want to buy a car, you don't have the money to buy the car. I'm always saying, whatever it is, just go start looking. That's intention. You just go and start looking. Start just creating that field of possibility and opportunity by going and looking at cars. That creates that intention, for that ideal situation to come your way.
Right, that really puts you in the market, so to speak, to use one of
Mm-hmm.
our modern words. Now, I was watching another thing that I put on my blog, Michael Tellinger, talking
Mm-hmm.
about, you could say, the harmonics of the earth. And unless I misunderstood this, he said that our eyes have rods and cones, and with
Mm-hmm.
those, they perceive what's around us in this, you could say, this thing called reality. But
Mm-hmm.
our pineal gland has the same. It also has rods and cones, and it
Mm-hmm.
is able to manifest what we desire and intend, in the true sense of just coughing up the thing that we've seen with our eyes that we know to
Mm-hmm.
be there. And then you know how they always say, visualize or imagine that you
Right.
are driving a new car. So it's the rods and cones of your pineal gland that will make that new car show up.
Right. Well, it's work and right. And then it's working in conjunction with your brain and your eyes and the optic, what is it? The optic nerve in the back of your head, which does project then out the image once it's there and you're able to touch it. So they're working together in tapping into that field in terms of the pineal gland as well, in tapping into that field of possibility where that car exists and then shows up as a physical thing that you can touch.
Right, and the matter of money between you and that physical thing is simply it would be to the pirahas a small inconvenience.
Right, because money is just a catalyst. There's so much that can show up in our lives that have nothing to do with money, but I think we are programmed to really, really do believe that we cannot do. And people say, "Well, you just can't do anything without money." It's such a programming because there's so many times in our lives where things are made possible and available, especially when we understand this. There's different conditions that show up that allows that situation to happen, and it didn't have anything to do with whether you had the money for it or not.
So circumstances, let's go back to this thing called will. I will bake a cake tomorrow, or I will buy a new car in the near future. Let's just say that, because that baking a cake for most people would be fairly easy, apart from, whether you know how to bake or not, because it doesn't take a lot of stuff to make a cake, right?
Right.
But if I were to say, well, let's set the intention that so and so will be, or let's ask so and so to set the intention that he or she will be driving a brand new car in the near future, then most people would say, well, there's more to that than simply baking a cake. So I would then posit that circumstances that get between you and that intention are simply um, parts of a labyrinth that require you to re-navigate to the destination that you intend to get to or to create, right? So
Mm-hmm.
this idea that there are these very, insurmountable, forbidding impediments and walls between us and our dreams is just another part of the resignation that many of us have living in this matrix.
Right.
And we refuse to acknowledge that we have the ability, as any moving thing does, to navigate around those obstructions if we just would put our mind to it.
Because it's programming, it's conditioning. It's the fact that human beings we are programmed a certain way to according to how the structure, then the matrix, let's say, how it's set up for us to view or interpret reality. So I think there's this blueprint of what reality is supposed to look like and how it's supposed to operate and what the protocols are, in terms of our relationship with this thing we call reality. And I think people get programmed with all of these beliefs, like we can't do it unless these things happen. That's becomes it's just a program. So people do see it that way. And then, of course, for them, yes, they can't do it unless they meet the conditions of these protocols. So it's just all programming.
Right. And you've mentioned that in your work as well. You've used that word programming.
Because it is. I mean, this is like a big computer system, like going on a whole other note. But I think this is why we're seeing so much of this this technology, the evolution of technology right now, and computer language and so on. And I don't think it's for people to be put off about it, because that's another belief system too, to be put off about not wanting to make that comparison. But the thing is that human beings create. We are creating according to the design of our own creation. There's a formula. It's like the same formula being used in many different ways, and just like a child imitates the parent, you might not want to, but you grow up and suddenly you find out that, God, I'm a lot like my mother, I'm a lot like my father. Or even, I hate to use this analogy, but I will. Slave and master, over after a while, the slave starts to act like the master, do things that the master would do, or treat, how they may treat each other, or children, or so on and so forth. But that's what we do. We sort of copy something that is already there, and that's what we see right now. So what we call reality and human beings, yeah, we do operate very much like a computer system, because it's all bits of information. We are bits of information. We are made up of information. Everything is codes of information, which for some people is sort of tough to want to view it that way.
So when I listen to you say that, it's a little hard for me to digest, just as you've kind of noted, that I thought that human beings were very pliable, intrinsically, inherently very creative,
They are.
mobile organisms. But apparently you're saying we have been programmed in an extremely limited and robotic way, and now we are conditioned societally and even on a deeper level to imitate those programs and teach them to each other.
Right, but it doesn't mean that these are final behaviors or permanent. When people wake up to understanding more about themselves, more about what we see around us, yes, we are pliable, but you're not pliable when you are stuck in a particular belief system and behavior and all of the things I mentioned before. But when we can wake up to that realization, sure, we can definitely begin to soar beyond, beyond those preset ways of operating. And Sophia, you see what I'm saying, though, that yes, it makes sense from that perspective, because if you notice how people are about when they're stuck on their religious beliefs or political beliefs, or even in any other thing, they get very final and they very stuck on it, and they don't want to hear you say anything that is in opposition to the belief system that they have. And that is a programming. Can they change and be shifted? Sure, if the individual wakes up like this guy you're talking about, this doctor, what is it, Everett? He basically, these people woke him up. He woke up to going, wait a second. And then he started to have more authentic thought. He started to think deeper. He started to expand because of what they're saying. It suddenly made sense. So that opens him up more. The other thing that we have to keep remembering too is that our brain filters a lot of what we see and experience, it filters it based on what we can allow ourselves to perceive. It filters it, and so we only see and experience life more so within the context of what we can accept as a possibility. So it's not that we don't have access to, more expansive information and knowledge and understanding of and all the possibility, but it's just that we have all been sort of conditioned collectively to operate within a certain structure and behavior. And then that comes in different levels. Some people are more open than others, but they're still in a box. So that's really all I'm pointing out. I hope that makes sense. So I'm not saying that that's final. You can't change. We're hardwired. No, we're pliable. The brain is pliable. Reality is pliable. What we have is the illusion of a static reality. We have this illusion even of ourselves. And so I hope that makes more sense.
It does. And so now I'm going to throw something else at you and see what you would say about it. Um, there was a YouTube that I watched about you saying that we should stop trying to be happy. So some people set happiness as a goal. They say, well, I just want to be happy, and I just can't be because of this, 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 and this, the list being endless. Um, Alternately, we could set a tangible goal as our destination. Well, someday I want to, let's just say, become educated and have a good job. I'm sick of waitressing or whatever. So that goal one would be able to put, get in motion and head toward that, like go to college. I know what, we might have to say about college, knowing what we know, but regardless, it's just an example. And yet being happy is different. It's more difficult or more elusive to attain because it really requires a shift in your own perception about yourself. But is it better to set tangible goals or emotional goals in this pliability that you're talking about? Let's say a person just wakes up and the next day and says, look, I'm sick of living the way I'm living. I'm self-limiting. I realize that. I got to change. What would you recommend they do?
Then that's what they do. Then at that moment, they have to assess, what is it about my life right now that I'm not happy with? What is it that's causing me to now come to these conclusions? And I think sometimes we just make these topical statements, and so that makes it more difficult for many people to actually create the change that they want, because they don't even know what it is that they really want to change, because they know that emotionally they're uncomfortable. It's a discomfort. But what is it about my life that is really causing that discomfort? What are the things that I am doing right now? How am I living right now? What relationships am I in at this time that is causing me this discomfort? And then they take it a step further. Okay, but so why am I still operating in this zone then? You know, then the next step is, what are the things that I can do to actually create these changes? So they're having to go these three levels of doing this, and then go, okay, now you know the things that you can do towards making these changes that you are now aware of, these specific changes that you're now aware of that's causing you to be in this discomfort. And then you take it from there, and you actually go ahead and you can make a plan if you want to, but either way, you're moving towards doing the things that are going to be necessary to change your condition, as opposed to going, you know what, I'm just sick of this and I got to change. And then next year rolls around and it's the same, because they never really assessed it. They don't even know what does happiness really mean for them. What does it look like? What does it smell like? If I close my eyes and I feel, I want to feel happy. Well, close my eyes and let's see, what would that feel like? What would the ideal life right now feel like for me? And I think we have to be able to do that. And it goes along with what we said before. We're talking about intention. baking a cake. How do I want the cake to come out? What are the ingredients that I really want in this cake? If I don't put the ingredients that I want in this cake that's specific to the taste that I want, I'm going to get something else. It's going to come out as something else. Or if I don't buy the ingredients and I just keep talking about baking this cake, I'm never going to bake this cake. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. I had a friend once who was very wise, and she told me that she had come upon a change in how she did things based on asking her body versus asking her mind. So this all happened one morning when she woke up. Was a couple of decades prior to our conversation. And she had been in a rocky relationship with a guy called Eric. And she woke up and her mind said, should I phone Eric today? And she didn't know whether she should or shouldn't. And she experienced her mind flip-flopping. And this kept her busy for about half an hour. And she was agitated and thoughts of phoning him, and then the resulting conversation and the angst and the upset. So she finally decided, look, my mind clearly doesn't know if it's a good idea to phone Eric or not. So I'm going to ask my body. So she asked her body, should I phone Eric today? And her body said, no.
Right.
Because it knew that it would become flooded with neurochemicals that would be unpleasant, right? So that's the discomfort you're talking about.
Right. I should have been specific to that, but yes, that's what I'm talking about. It is a discomfort. You feel it in your gut. You feel it in just many places. A lot of times we do feel that in our gut, or our hearts are pounding or whatever. We know, but we a lot of times override or ignore these sensations, and that's why I say close your eyes and feel what this thing you're talking about this other life. What does that feel like? And I think it's important to kind of feel that, what does that feel like? What would that feel like for me? And you do get the sense that comes over you that your whole being just embraces that possibility. And then you go, okay, so now how do I move towards that? Now, some people don't have to do that. Some people can just, they get up and they go, you know what? This is it today. I am done. And I have had those days, and I think many of us have, where we just decide, and there's no wavering. There is no doubt. There is nothing. There is just, I'm done. And then everything starts moving into place, and you start moving forward because you're not questioning anymore whether you're done, or you're not talking about it. That's another thing that I say. When you keep talking about it and telling people, yeah, you know what, I'm just done, I'm not doing this anymore, and you keep talking about it, that's because you're not done. When you're done, there's nothing, you don't even talk about it. It's just action. I don't know. Have you had that, Sophia?
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
made a decision
exactly.
just a few months ago that I was done with something, and it turned out that was a very good decision. And you know what? I'm going to go back to my friend's wisdom, because she said that thereafter, after that morning when her body told her with a resounding no not to phone this Eric guy, she never called him again. She realized that if she didn't know what to do, if she asked her body, she would always get the right answer, because the body is the vessel in which you interact with and meet the world, and its components, including its chemicals, are what really create the quality of your life. They create this thing called happiness. So if you ask your body if you should do something and it tells you no, I'm not going to like that, because sometimes people say, oh yeah, you're invited to such and such party, it starts at 10 p.m. And my body just says, no, I'm not going anywhere at 10 p.m. I'll feel terrible. So that's the kind of answer. If you're at all waffling about how to implement this new shift in your life to go in another direction, I would suggest, as my friend explained to me, to ask your body and then do what your body says.
Right, absolutely. Well, your body's, it's a sensory system. So, yes, all sensations, emotions is what energy and motion. So everything is being processed through these vehicles, these vessels we call our bodies. All of those sensations. So yes, you are going to feel it. Just like we feel intuition, we feel something is coming up, something doesn't feel right, or something, even joy, we'll get a sense of happiness, but we'll have no idea where that's coming from. But something is on its way. And that's been my experience. Something is on its way. I don't know what it is, why I feel like this. And then boom, maybe the same day or, a couple days, something incredible happens. And it's like, oh, so that's why I was picking that up ahead of time. It's like, like radio waves. We're so tapped into so much, into possibilities, that are aligned based on our desires, based on so much. And it's just a matter of being able to pay attention to it. But your body always seems to pick up get that sensation first, like muscle testing, for food, should I eat this? And your body, will tell you this is just not a good idea. So it is very much muscle testing.
Well, it could also be that your body is, I call it thrumming, when it's vibrating in a really high energy way, and you don't know the reason behind that, and then boom, this amazing thing happens soon
Right.
after. And it could be that that's the law of attraction at work, that because you had all this good stuff flowing in you, and you were on that vibration of extremely good, high, powerful, clean, resonating you, the real you, the you at its best, that this thing now comes to you. So just because we live in this world of, you could call it deceptions, conspiracies being created to lay traps for us and debilitate us, the medical world being, not as concerned about our well-being as it purports to be, as an example, and many other, the banking system. I mean, everything is really designed. We live in a reality that's totally booby-trapped. So how does a person who understands that they have intentionality at their bidding, and they have true, real power, they have spirituality, they have this ability to vibrate high, how does a person who knows they have all of that implement that in this world that's completely rigged and the deck is stacked against us?
That's a big question. I can I can answer that, but some of these things aren't two-word or two-statement responses either. But I want to say real quickly too before I go to that. But with in respects to the video, stop trying to be happy. Just so people know, if they watch the video, they'll get a clearer thing. I'm not saying don't be happy. What I'm saying is there is such a overdose of hype to be happy, for some people to be happy, and people end up wearing a mask, trying to show that everything is okay and that they're happy, and so they're sweeping things under the rug and not dealing with it. In the meantime, on the inside, they're suffering. And this is what I mean, is to allow those emotions to show up. All emotions are valid, and we're taught in a way that we want to disqualify them, because we only want this idea of just being happy, when all the emotions count. They all count. They're there for a reason. It's not good or bad. It's just there. And it's just a matter of being able to allow that moment, process it, and then allow yourself to move into more of an, authentic space of being okay and allowing and making your plans towards then being, ideally happy, then whatever your concept or idea of happiness is. So I just wanted to make sure I clarified that. So let's see. Okay, so now I have to remember what the question was.
Well, I'm glad you clarified. That's good, because it's an important clarification. So thank you. And yeah, the question was this, the short form. In this upside down, rigged against us world, if we do have at our bidding our own powers of creation and enormity, let's just call it, uh, how do we proceed around all the impediments, among the
Well,
impediments?
yeah, and I guess the reason why I say this is, I mean, this is stuff I talk about all day long, but again, I'm doing like workshops and we're doing this, talking about this for a good amount of time because here's the thing. Yes, we have a lot that appears to be going on around us. Um, but it's how we also take that in, and I don't want this to come off as woo woo either, but to me the bottom line is, and I can only go by the way that I operate and the people that I've done my workshops, or we deal with this, and I've seen, I get lots of emails from people in terms of the changes that they've gone through in just changing their interpretation. When we get so hung up and caught up in what's going on out there and how they're doing this and how it's going to affect me, that is creating a certain relationship, emotional relationship with that external experience. And at that, and in those moments, we are really believing that all of those external conditions are control, what happens in us and what happens in our lives. This is what we are affirming, is that what's going on out there is totally going to impact what's going on with me in here. And I'm saying, no, it doesn't. It doesn't have to be that way. It goes back to everything that we were saying about, intention and what is it that you do want. You have to still go back to that. Understand that the world is going to be whatever the world is in that moment. And it's up to each person to really look at how they can create a life for themselves. And it's not a matter of being selfish, because we are all one. We are all one, and we are still individuals in the illusion of being an individual. And you represent the whole, each one of us. I do believe, like the single cell of a plant, the history and all that information is encoded in that single cell, that little sliver that you can cut from a plant. And so we have to recognize the importance of each one of us really creating an environment for ourselves, a world for ourselves, how we're going to interpret our own lives. What is it that we want to do? And just continue to make plans to do those things. Don't do it. Don't make plans or do it based on, yes, but how am I going to get around this? Well, what Trump is doing and that. It's not about that. It's, you are more of the master than people really think or are taught to own. And this is what I'm saying. Reality is pliable. You're pliable, and you can create what it is that you want in your space. Now, can we possibly then send a ripple? It's very possible that the changes you make starts to ripple out. Now, the other thing that for some people, they might have a challenge with this next statement, but if you really look at it, you will see it does make sense. The only thing that we honestly know about the world is the things that we are experiencing in our immediate environment, whether it be in our house, when we leave the house, when we get on the bus, when we drive our car and we're on the freeway. All the things that you're interacting with in that moment are the only things that you know for sure about the world. Everything else is brought to you through videos, pictures, images, news. Think about that. You really don't know. You don't know that any country exists until you are even there and participating. Everything is brought to you through some sort of image or video or any of that. So the reality you're dealing with, the world that you know of, is the one that you are interacting with in that moment. And that's why that tribe operates like that. You see, but when I say this, for some people, the people who understand this and follow my work, they totally get it. But you say it to some people and they think that you're just, I can't do that. Well, you can't do that because you can't do that. But it is a fact.
You just taught Piraha language, and I'm so glad you brought them up again, because that's exactly it. They only are interested in what they can experience. They don't even want to know about Timbuktu or the Arctic, or they don't want to know about it unless you, as their friend, had an experience over in Timbuktu or the Arctic, and you were going to tell them about your experience. Then they would be interested.
Right, right, absolutely. And this is something we don't understand. But this is a language I speak. This is what I talk about all day long, because I realized that some time ago that the only thing I know is this moment. And it is with all of us. And because of our conditioning, how do we live? We live in the past and we live in the future. We have such a time understanding how to be present, how to live in the now. So that's why I said earlier, everything outside of the now for us is only a speculation. If we speculate about the future, you really don't know, but we speculate based on what? Based on a set of information that we currently have, and we use that to assess these a particular set of possibilities. Not only do we do that, but then we also draw on our past, whether it be a collective past or whatever history. We draw on that information, and then we use the past to create more of the future, because nobody lives right here, right now. Nobody is present.
That's correct. And, you could have answered my question, honestly, by saying, well, the answer to what do we do in this matrix is just come to one of my workshops.
I mean, I would love for people to come to the workshop. They are different, but I tell you what, um, it's like, nobody is ever the same. Is it because I changed them? No, it's because people on their own, because this is my big thing. I am not about telling you, you come and I'm changing you. No, I say things that people already, they know, for them it's a truth. They feel it. And then they make their own changes. I am reminding you. That's how I see it. I remind people, and something is triggered. It could be one word. We all have had that. You hear one word, somebody say one word, and it triggers something in you, and boom, it opens you up to this whole other way of thinking. And that's what I do in the workshops that I present. And it just opens people up to a wider excuse me, perspective and perception, and it changes the choices that they will make, simply because they have more latitude in their thinking.
I really liked what you said a little while ago in your answer about when you worry about things like what is Trump going to do, and what if Hillary gets elected, things like that, you are creating a relationship with those events, and it's a very thick bond that you're making. The more you worry about it, the more you infuse it with your own fear, the thicker you're making that bond that ties you to it, right?
Absolutely. And the more you will encounter situations, oh, I'm so sorry. The more you will encounter situations that will confirm, or keep allowing you to have these very experiences that you're so afraid of having, that you're so worried about having. You're setting the stage for it. And then you get into a relationship with those situations, and then you go, see, I knew it. But then you don't realize, well, you kind of created the ideal conditions now to enter into this relationship, with this experience, this person, situation, whatever that may be. But we give our permission. We have to give our permission, even when we don't think we're giving our permission. We give our permission to appear that we don't give our permission. We give our permission for pretty much a great many things that we're unaware of. And it's very interesting. It's a tough one.
I was walking on the beach once. It was many, many years ago, and I fell into step with this woman. And she was telling me about her husband and this surgery he had, which was a very, high risk surgery. And the surgeon met with the family after the surgery and told them how it had gone. And they listened and they thanked him. And then she asked the surgeon, she said, "So, should we worry?" And he just looked at her and he said, "Worry is optional. It's not going to change what happens."
It is. It's totally optional, though. It is everything. It's all these options that we have, of what we can do. But worrying is something that we are conditioned to do. We feel worried if we don't worry. It's pretty. It's pretty crazy, but we're worried when we feel that we don't have anything to worry about. Why are we like that? Because we're problem solvers. We we are great at solving problems. We love to solve problems. We look for the next problems to solve. And I've talked to many people, and including myself, where I've had moments where everything was just ideal. There was nothing to worry about. And then you get that thing that sort of creeps up, and it's like you're kind of concerned that, geez, everything is going so great. And hence we come up with this kind of nonsense programming that all good things must come to an end. That kind of belief system pops up. It's like all good things must come to an end. So ultimately, we are looking for that good feeling to come to an end, and then we go back to an issue because why? And what's the deeper level as to why we're like that? Because of survival, our innate need to survive, our survival program, and I connect it with what I call the automated part of us, the robotic part of us, that's used to living off of the old information, information from the past, history. That's the part of us that speculates about the future. Well, that part of us, its job is about survival. And so if it doesn't have anything there, it looks for something because it's like a child. It's like, well, what do I do? What do I play with now? If I don't have anything to worry about, what am I going to do? And it sounds silly, but that's what we do because we're all about surviving. We've been doing it for a long time. We're always running from something. Food, clothes, shelter, danger, 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 Will Robinson. We're always looking for something, and we feel better a lot of times when something pops up. And then there it is. Now we're distracted again. That becomes our focus of now we got to solve this problem.
So, would you say that the Pirahas, I know you haven't studied them, that I just kind of brought them up today, but I thought myself that human beings sought efficiency, shortcuts. They wanted to be able to do things more quickly and better, and that this was part of our hard wiring. But this particular tribe isn't interested in that, it seems. They actually do real work for survival, about 15 hours a week, Professor Everett said. And the rest of the time they lie on the beach and chat with one another. And that's what they would much rather do. Chat.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are we all problem solvers? And what's different about them?
Well, but they are, though. It doesn't matter how it looks. They still are. They've just found ways to, and I think with them, they solve a problem as it pops up as well. They don't spend their time, I think, looking into the future and trying to resolve a problem before it happens like that. I think it sounds like they live in the moment of what needs to be done. And I think their mind is more clear to come up with a quick solution because they don't carry like a baggage of, oh my God, well, this could happen or this happened here, and they don't have commercials playing in their ears about, if you don't have your insurance and then there's a car crash sound in the commercial. I mean, they're not dealing with all of that. So they've learned to be there in the moment of this is what we're facing. Let's fix it. Let's come up with a solution, and they do that. So so they do that too, but they're just not worrying about it.
Right. They don't, because they don't sit there and worry and collectively or fear for the future because they don't have the input that we're getting all the time. All these
Exactly.
economic predictions and the dollar going
Absolutely.
and whatnot. Yeah, so they use their collective energy to help each other. And also, he said that most of the time, all of them are laughing. They're exhibiting and experiencing joy. No matter what happens, if their little lean-to palm frond thing breaks or blows over, they just laugh and they make another one. And so they're experiencing and demonstrating enjoyment of life, even though they live where it's buggy and, huge alligators and that pin you under and whatever. But
But it's no different than our environment. I mean, if you think about it, we just don't have the alligators and stuff, but we have worry about somebody breaking into your house, a car crash. I mean, we're traumatized by that kind of. Their environment sounds safer to me, quite honestly, than this other environment that we live in. If we really think about it.
I think it's about how you're acclimated because I have a friend who was transported when she was about 10 years old to live in Paraguay. So that's the equivalent, I guess, of the Amazon. It was the jungle. And this was a German community of Mennonites who are extremely precise, precision-oriented, very efficient. And it was in the time of World War II, just after the war. And she said Paraguay was a nightmare. This German community finding themselves in Paraguay, and as you and I were discussing before the show, not nearly as well defended biologically with the antibody system that the natives have and other defenses. The conditioning, being used to living in an environment like that. But she was describing to me, and I had a morbid fascination, I must tell you, how they would have to plunge the legs of their beds that they made out of, I guess, wood into cans of kerosene because there were these deadly bugs that would run up the legs of your bed and bite you during the night. And everything was hardship, 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 the way she described it. And it ended up making her a person whose only dream was to have a push-button life in the modern world after this experience in Paraguay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I think again, human beings adapt. That is the one thing, that's what we know. Again, it goes back to that word pliable. Adaptation. We adapt to just all kinds of environments and conditions that we want to live in. Now, for her, she might be fine with wanting to come and have push button life. Things are somewhat easier. In one way, it's easier. But for some of those people who've been living like that from generation to generation, it would take them a while to acclimate to our environment. This is a little bit off the subject, but not really. We have a friend who got married, and her husband is from Florida. Like, I don't know, I'm not real familiar with Florida, but real country area, end of Florida, part of Florida. And moving out here to Los Angeles, it was really tough on him. The cars, the traffic, it was just so much. It was just overwhelming that they had to move to another area that was a lot less of that happening. So again, and then where he was living, we probably would go, oh my God, I can't even be here. So to me, I think it's just amazing as to how we adapt to these, various environments that we found ourselves in throughout the course of human history, our life. So I don't know. It's almost like it's all relative. It just depends,
You
and
have to get used to it then, I guess.
You get used to it, but it might take you a while to adapt to it. Some people may never adapt, but if you grew up in it, then it's normal to you. If you've never experienced anything else, that's normal for you. I grew up, first 13 years of my life in Jamaica. Now I'm used to seeing ants red ants, black ants. I mean, they bite the little red ones, the big, fire ants. Um, but it was just part of lizards. It was just all part of my life. So here now, spiders. But as a little kid, I was one of those bizarre kids. I like playing with spiders, and I like thunderstorms, lightning. But then here now, when there's ants, everybody freaks out. My husband is like, "Oh my God, there's ants," and he gets crazy. For me, I don't even freak out about it so much. Yeah, I'd rather them not be there. But because that part of me is still there from growing up in that environment, I'm not afraid of bees, and I don't freak out when a bee comes by, or even if I got stung, I'm not freaking out about it because, I grew up in that environment. So it's just interesting to see how everybody else gets. They freak out. Oh my God, there's a bees, and everybody starts flying everywhere. So, so it is with so many things, all based on what we've become accustomed to in our environment. And then, of course, would I want to necessarily go back and live in that particular situation? Um, not necessarily do I want to live where there's a lot of ants or bugs or whatever. But if I had to, I'm sure my brain would just probably revert back.
Well, I think the ants and the bugs are just conditions, as you say, of being in a particular environment. And our equivalent of ants and bugs might be, I don't know, the cacophony of noise, the traffic, the radio frequencies. These are really invisible. They're not even as visible as the ants and bugs. I had a friend who moved from the wilds of Canada to LA for 6 weeks and couldn't sleep a night, and decided that it was the
too much
radio frequencies that were
Yeah.
the Wi-Fi everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And she never understood that this has an effect on you. So,
but it's affecting everybody, though. That's just it. Even though we've gotten used to it, all these people, we're all affected to some degree with these invisible frequencies and transmissions. I think they're helping to make people sick. But yeah, and I went through that when I moved from by the beach, and I moved to LA 10 years ago, and where we were living at the time, it was right off a main street. I had never in my life lived off a main street, and the traffic going by was just so much. It was just too much for me. And then I would feel the people, the vehicles going by. It's like I would feel the energy of the people as the cars would go by. It was much. So I totally get that.
So what did you do?
I tolerated. I had to deal with it until till we moved. I absolutely hated it. And then we moved to a place not that far actually away from where I was before, but this is more it feels more country to me. Like I wake up and I, hear a rooster crowing or something like that. Now that takes me back to Jamaica. I love that. To me, it's soothing. I hear a rooster crowing. I don't hear fire trucks. I hardly ever hear a police car. I don't hear anything. And the first night when we moved here, when we got this house, and I said to my husband, I said, "Did you hear that?" This is when we went to bed. I go, "Did you hear that?" And he goes, "What?" I go, "Exactly. There's nothing. There's like nothing." It was so quiet. It was like, oh my God. Yes. But we're bombarded by noise and all these frequencies. Everybody is. We've just gotten used to dealing with it, so we don't notice. But I do believe that people are affected more than they think.
I think that this bombardment distresses the body to the point that it's not able to function optimally. And I don't mean just in terms of illness and strength and blood flow and oxygenation and all of that. I mean in terms of its emotional, its chemical functionality.
Everything.
Your body, if it's too hassled, it gets tired. And if you're tired on a physical and physiological and physiochemical level, then you're not at your best, and things are going to get to you, and you're going to feel bummed out and discouraged and
They feel burned out.
resigned. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because it's an electrical system or electromagnetic system. And so, yes, there's interference affecting, like you said, from the emotional aspect of the sensory system to the cells, the fluid around the cells. I mean, we're talking also a buildup of static electricity just driving in your car. I mean, it's such a buildup, and a lot of these things can easily be detoxed from the body by simply going and spending just a little bit more time in nature, getting away every now and then. Even for me working on the computer, I was saying that again to my husband. I was like, this is what I have to do because I where I work from my home is to go outside, and I would just take my shoes off and rub it on the grass or in the ground to get rid of the static buildup. But people don't realize how much static actually builds up in your body that affects your cells and the lymphatic system, the fluid buildup and stagnation in your cells. Well, yeah, it's going to affect down to the emotional processing. It's a domino effect. Everything is connected in this system.
Yeah, you're talking about body voltage, and the Earth's surface contains a flow of electrons, a very mild current that has become a life stimulus. And our modern lives and our indoor living and our rubber shoes have taken us off the Earth. And so what we collect in our bodies is positive charge from the electromagnetic and electrical fields of our wiring, our computers, our appliances, and not having the return to ground of that electricity. And that's why it's necessary to go outside, be in the open air. Sunlight gives you electrons, and sunlight charges your body, gives you the capacity to make vitamin D, and rubbing your feet on the grass gives you an influx of what's called free electrons, and all that regulates your autonomic nervous system, restores your settings. So it is important, definitely, to be in the fresh air, falling water. An environmental MD specialist told me that even crystals like rose quartz and amethyst will bop out an electron here and there. So that's why people feel better. I never believed that you could feel better by wearing a crystal around your neck, but he explained that they do have with a few electrons that they donate and you pick up. But it's minuscule compared to what you would get by being outside. So yeah, if you're a city dweller, you've got to figure out a way to get in nature. And that's the disconnect. That's the big disconnect. That's what keeps us unnatural and worried. And these pirajas, I think, I'm going to ask Dr. Everett, if I can get through to him, what their conversations and chats consist of.
That would be interesting.
Yeah, because if, in our communities, like if I were to get together with you, we might talk about this stuff. But as a dyed-in-the-wool conspiracy analyst, let me call myself, when I'm together with friends, we discuss the things we're learning. Now, as you mentioned, these are things we only have knowledge of through the internet or piecing stuff together and making our own connections. But everything comes from outside unless we've had a direct experience with the bank or somewhere in our life, medicine, and we can say with personal certainty that such and such was done to me, and I know that this was not good for me, and I know this reflects a larger situation that's out there that I've read about. So otherwise, not having, the pirajas don't go to doctors, and a few of them die. They have mishaps. They probably have some illnesses and whatnot, broken limbs from accidents. But I think, my theory is that they spend most of their discussion time, which is almost all of their time, they're lying on the beach, so they're grounding, they're connecting with the earth, and they're supporting their parasympathetic nervous system they have regulation between sympathetic, which is adrenaline and fight or flight, danger-based, high charge, peak performance, and then the rest state, relax, digest. And I think their discussions would probably consist of bringing each other back into expressions of joy. So any momentary blip in that baseline, for them, the baseline is joy, which is why they smile and laugh all the time. For us, the baseline is stress and worry.
Right,
and it's
right.
extremely unnatural.
Yeah, and I think I have to throw this part in. I do have to throw this in because they're living an incredible life, an incredible lifestyle. And we're living a different lifestyle. And I think that what I want to remind people of is this. Now some people might say, oh, okay, well, now you're getting all, whatever, esoterical. But being a human being, I see this is the way I see it. We are here to experience all that it is to be a human being. What we would say good, bad, and indifferent. Obviously, it is allowed because we have experienced probably just every possibility that there could potentially be, and we cannot say that God is everything or creation is everything, and then we want to backtrack and say, but not these things. So my point is this tribe of people are experiencing an aspect of what is possible, of what creation can be. They're expressing that, they're experiencing that. However, in this environment that maybe you and I are in, this part of this reality, what we call maybe Western world or the rest of the world, we are also participating in all of the possibilities and expressing and experiencing all that is possible. With different kinds of limitation to each individual. So I think we want to also look at that and to embrace this experience. And then you can, when you choose as an individual, to then want to transcend that kind of experience, that kind of worry, and that kind of fear and all of that, then we have that opportunity as well to say, you know what, there has to be another way. And we start investigating and we start getting to know ourselves and we start tapping into ourselves and we start seeing a bigger picture. And then we start hopefully beginning to then transcend those kinds of behavior. But I just don't want to completely disqualify. This is an incredible experience. To be a human being, it's an incredible experience. So I always want to make sure that we understand that so that we don't end up in a fight and mode and against reality, and we're in battle with it, because that doesn't really serve either, but is to really sort of have an appreciation for the fact that we are part of this human experience and that we have had an opportunity to really experience what it is to be a human being. Now, what more do I want to do? I've experienced suffering. I've experienced challenges. I've experienced all of these things. I certainly have experienced a whole lot of those things from domestic violence on in my life. But I gradually began to see a bigger picture, and as I go along, I continue to see a bigger picture, and I continue to aim to have more of that peace. But I don't disqualify the experiences that I've had, because they have been a stepping stone to what I now understand and to where I am. So I just want to make that clear so people get that. This is not about beating up necessarily on, how are we like this? Why are we doing this? No, look at the opportunity and look at yourself right now. Appreciate your past. Appreciate everything. I say don't regret anything. But how can I use those things that have happened to me as a stepping stone to transcending into a more expansive life, a more expansive part of me? And it helps us to understand the experiences that other people go through as well. So I just wanted to say that.
That was great. I really mean it. And thank you for that. Because, yes, it's not that our life sucks. Just like my friend who went from Germany, the, high efficiency of Germany, to the Amazon and couldn't handle the bugs and the banana leaves for toilet paper and stuff like this, we probably wouldn't like it. And it would take us a
No.
very long time to get used to it. So there's a kernel of extreme significance in what you pointed out, that your life is your life, and that it is what it is, and it's given you all these opportunities to have experiences, and you can keep expanding those opportunities and take them in certain new directions by your own intention and your own redirection. And that's the power of being a human being, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And so it's easier. Yeah, we can romanticize about different things, but it doesn't mean that we would so readily embrace that and want to be a part of it, because, we've become accustomed to living in buildings, and when it rains, we want an umbrella. And, I mean, I like walking in the rain, but California rain is cold. You live in the islands. Yes, it's nice because the rain is warm. But, you want to walk around, where you just have something covering over you and it's raining, it's pouring, there's just different conditions that we might just romanticize about, but might not so readily want to be part of. But we can appreciate that and we can learn from them. I think they give us so much that we can incorporate this tribe that you're talking about, that we can incorporate, because we're saying the same things about being in the now. The difference with them, though, is that they're living that one way. We've had the gift, and I'm going to say gift, of experiencing an incredible latitude of what reality can be from our different perspectives. Now we take the gift that they give and we incorporate that in our lives and look at the where we've placed our focus on things that are probably not that important. Where's our emphasis? And a lot of what we may focus on is probably just part of the social programming of validations, validating who you are, what looks good, what doesn't, what kind of person should you be, those kinds of protocols. And this group don't have that. They don't have any protocols for who they are. They just are.
That's exactly right. And I would urge people to look into the book. The DVD is much more difficult to get. It was made in Australia, called The Grammar of Happiness, but I've obtained a copy. It's on its way to me. And Don't Sleep, There Are Snakes is the book by Daniel Everett. And that is not to minimize the work of our own guest, Sonia Barrett. I'm going to be putting her website up as a link, and her book and her documentary, The Business of Disease. Sonia, thank you so much for this great discussion. I've learned a lot from it. It's charged me up. So it's been wonderful.
Well, thank you, Sophia. Thank you for all that you do, all that you've presented to all of us and that you continue to present. And I look forward to, seeing you in San Diego soon.
You were supposed to come down here and visit me as well as your son.
I'm going to. I'm going to. I'm coming to La Jolla, actually.
Right, well, we'll make our plans. But in the meantime, everybody, please enjoy the show. Pass it on. We have had great insights and wisdom from our guest, Sonia Barrett.
And let me give my website. I'm sorry, it's therealsoniabarrett.com.
Yes, and it will be linked. I'm going to link whatever I can to expand the choices for our listeners. So again, thank you. Hope to see you soon and have more talks with you like this.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Sophia letting you know about my store, avatarproducts.com. It began as a DVD store in the old days, but I've switched it over to products that I've found. Some of them I've actually thought of myself, and people have formulated them for me, biochemists with labs, And I am selling now a lot of body remediation items that you might enjoy as you discover your own body getting a little older, accumulating a few more toxic materials and compounds. Our cells get challenged later in life. They need a little help doing their housekeeping. So avatarproducts.com, if you look under the Health tab, the Body and Posture tab, there's a Sun and Skin tab. You'll find things like a fantastic argan oil soap, argan oil itself, magnesium products that are delivered through the skin, and iodine, seat cushions that keep you straight at your desk when you're constantly looking at your computer for more and more alternative information. Anyway, avatarproducts.com. Please go there. Please have a look. Definitely use the downloaded PDF form for sending in a check. Let's support each other and not enrich the banks. You can always mail your order in. And I thank you very much for your support.